Welcome back to the SteadyTrade Podcast, everyone. I'm Tim Bowen, back with Matt McCall. Got a cool topic today, something that's really kind of piqued my interest for really probably a decade. And, as we kind of started hearing rumblings of it, and that's autonomous vehicles. And, I really think that, something that I think when I really started thinking about this was actually StocksToTrade. We used to be located in Orange County, California, and I was going out for business meetings and stuff, and just the traffic. And I was just sitting there thinking, what could I be getting done while I'm sitting in this traffic? I had my mobile phone, but I'm driving. I had a rental car, and it's just dangerous, okay? And then when I was talking to Matt about topics, I thought of just a personal anecdote. Literally last week, many of you that were on the webinars know I had to cancel 2 webinars because I had to go get my blood work done. And it's one of those things you can't get your blood work done at midnight. Probably don't want to go to that doctor if he does it. You can't get it done on weekends. So, and all of you know, I live in a rural area. I love my hundreds of acres of hunting land and stuff, but I'm far from everything. So that day, I did the morning webinar, and then I had to literally run to my truck, go as fast as I possibly could into Grand Rapids, spend all of this, and basically, I got back from the day, because I left after the morning webinar, I probably left at about 9:45. I got back at 3:30. I had to stop and get something to eat, because you have to fast to get your blood work done. And basically, a whole day, an entire day was gone because I had to drive. And I'm just thinking about this, and I'm like, what could I have done if I could have just typed the doctor's office into my car, got out the laptop, and I could have been on those webinars. I could have been working with a lot of you guys. I could have been doing replying to emails, all this stuff. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there, checking stock prices on my phone as I'm on the freeway, basically preparing to die, okay? So not only the productivity aspects of it, but hey, I wish I was a saint. I'm doing dangerous stuff. I'm going 85 and looking at the price of tickers and stuff. It's not good. And so I think of something, just a massive change, especially now that we are a knowledge economy, and especially when you think of COVID and work from home, work from your car. So that's why I'm so excited about this, is not just the safety aspects of it, but I just look at it as a big, huge potential productivity boom.
It really is. Peter Diamandis, who's a futurist that I love him.
Yep.
The Futurist Faster You Think is probably one of my top 3 books ever. So if you haven't read that, read it. It's amazing.
Peter Diamandis. Great newsletter.
So he came out just a few weeks ago. It came across my email that the U.S. commuter, the average U.S. commuter, spends 216 hours per year in a vehicle just to and from work. Not going to get blood work done, just to and from work.
Sure.
That's equivalent to 27 8-hour days. So basically a month work of work. Just think about if you could actually work while you're doing that. These back and forth. People say, well, I work from home, I don't need it. What about the trips when you go see grandma from Michigan and you drive, let's say, Kansas, and it's an 8-hour drive? You put the kids in the back. I've seen the inside of these cars at CES, Tim. They're amazing. It's basically screens everywhere. They're comfortable. You can take a nap. You can sleep. They wake you up when you get there. So this morning, on our way here to shoot this, we're in Miami. I got an Uber from the hotel, and the guy put my bag in the back of my suit, and I looked down, and he's got a little laptop sitting in the console with the NASDAQ E-mini futures trading. So he gets in, and he's driving with it on his lap.
Right.
And
which back to the safety aspect.
Exactly. I liked it because we talked about trading stocks and futures, and I told him all about Tim Bowen. You got to get in there if you're doing stuff like that. And it was mind-blowing. Yes, he would rather be home, but he has to do both because he has to supplement his income, so he has to do that.
Sure.
So, there are ways that this is going to work out.
Listen, speaking of the safe, I don't know how safe that was, but we both travel a lot. I've been in Ubers where guys are arguing with their wives, and it's heated. I'm man, is this guy gonna drive this car off a cliff or something? There's been actually coming here, I got pulled over, and the guy had a warrant out for his arrest for back child support. and we're on the basically coming across into Miami Beach, so where I can't get out, and the cop is this is literally a couple of days ago. The cop chewed him out. He's you take him to this hotel, go home, get your warrant taken care of, let him go with a suspended license. And listen, the cop was great, but as we left, I'm okay, is this the one thing that sends this guy over the edge?
Yeah.
Maybe he's had a really bad day, and now he's got to be in court tomorrow, and I'm trapped in the back of his car right now. So anyway, another aside.
Well, and Ubers are great, Lyfts are great. dirty sometimes, whatever. But it's the driver that scares me a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because they're trying to get to the next job, so they're trying to go as quickly as possible to make as much money. And safety is a big issue why we'll see autonomous vehicles and eventually robotaxis, as we'll talk about in a minute. You know, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, 42,500 people died in motor vehicle crashes back in 2022. I mean, that's a lot of people. 5.9 million crashes and 2.4 million related injuries in that time frame. Just think about that. The economic cost, $340 billion.
Yeah.
But they say, you know, once AVs get to the level, they're all level 5. Tesla's on the verge of that right now. They will eliminate 99.9% of accidents because most of them are, like you said, the guy looking down, the person drinking, the person who's driving emotionally driven and they're driving stupid. It's not typically the car.
Right.
It's the person driving the car. And I think when you look at a trend, that's going to be huge. It comes down to money, and in this situation, safety, right? Sure. Safety aspects there, but the money. I showed you this chart. We'll put up on the screen now, but I showed you this chart that going back to horse and buggy, it costs about $1.70 per mile of owning a vehicle. It came down to 70 cents in the 1930s when cars really were becoming more mass-produced.
Mass mainstream, yep.
But today, it's still 70 cents.
Interesting.
And when we go to robotaxis, which is basically just AVs, but you call and it come pick you up like an Uber, it goes down to 25 cents.
Really?
So you think about everybody's living paycheck to paycheck out there right now. If you can cut that cost by 60% or so, 70%, that's insane.
Well, because the beauty is, and I'm sure you've got notes on this, but where I think it's going headed is, like, once these things hit mainstream, I mean, you don't have to own a vehicle anymore.
Exactly.
Because now you just order it. You know, like, okay, you schedule it the night before, like you can do with Uber now. Like, okay, I got to be at work at 9. The thing shows up at 8:30, and you don't have the insurance costs, you don't have the fuel costs, you don't have the maintenance costs. Like, that's always the thing with any vehicle that, like my son's young and, buys his first car, and you have to have that conversation. Like he's a smart kid. He knows how to, take the cost of the vehicle and divide it by, 36 months, and that's his payment. I'm like, whoa. Like, and he obviously knew gas. I gave him a car when he turned 16, but like he never knew the old man was paying insurance,
Yeah.
And he kind of forgot the fact that when it broke, the old man paid for that as well. So it's like, those are a lot of the costs that you don't have when you don't own this vehicle anymore. So,
and it's, but a lot of people in America have multiple vehicles. I'm sure you have multiple vehicles. Exactly.
I collect Toyotas. I've got a problem. Yes.
So the other thing that's fascinating about this is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, transportation, and it's an industry that if you think back over 100 years, it hasn't really changed.
Yeah.
100 years ago.
More bells and whistles.
Yeah, but you still pulled over and put gas in, right? New Jersey's the only state I know where you can't fill your own gas tank. You pull up and it's old school, they fill it up for you. But nothing's really changed. I mean, sure, some people have EVs, about 3% of you, 2.5%. But outside of that, this is a trillion-dollar industry that has not been disrupted in a century. Yeah. This is the first time we're going to see disrupted. And that's why this potential, to me, Tim, is so enormous, because it's something we all can see and feel. We all get in cars. I don't own a car. I've had a driver's license in 7 years.
Oh, well, right.
I got it last month for the first time, so I shouldn't be saying that because I did drive illegal for a long time. But I didn't have a driver's license for over 7 years, which was crazy. But my point is, we all see and feel the car because we all get in one every day, most of us. And just realizing that in 10 years, the way that we get anywhere will be completely upended. Mm-hmm. Where are those trillions of dollars going? Right. And that's what we need to talk about, I think, those opportunities are.
Yeah. Now, before we get into that, one quick question, and I know, like especially when I quote unquote, I'm in a rural area. Okay, so they're kind of the small town mindset. So like when you talk to the old timers, they're all like, oh, these things are going to run everybody over and stuff like that. And I'm all like, my reply, and I'm curious if you feel the same, is like, I've always been a technology guy. Okay, we talked about that. Like I was the computer guy in elementary school, early 80s, loading up Oregon Trail. Okay, and I'm just like, okay, if I'm going to get run over. Like God says you're going to get run over today, Tim. Like, I would rather get run over by a supercomputer than by some dude that's drunk, maybe on pills, and just got in an argument with his wife. Like to me, I'll take the odds of a supercomputer connected to all this AI and all this stuff. There's still going to be accidents, but like, what are the odds? Like especially when it comes to like trading. Okay, it's like you take high on setups, and I'll take that computer every time over some guy, again, that's been drinking and just got in a fight with his wife because he was supposed to be home 2 hours ago.
Maybe he's a good guy and he just worked too late that night.
There you go.
And he went to work an extra shift.
Double shift, and he's tired. Yeah.
You know, in 2022, they did a Pew Research did a survey, and 37% of Americans actually said they would get in AV, which I thought was pretty high.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
Like, again, where I'm from, like where I'm digits, right? People hate EVs.
Yeah.
They hate them.
EVs, then you take it a step further and go down.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, the one thing that has been talked about a lot when it comes to autonomous vehicle is kind of the moral dilemma. So if the car is driving down the road,
trolley analogy.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, does it run the person over, or does it go over here, potentially kill the people in the car? It has to make a decision.
Yep.
You know, the human, you just kind of react and do it. You have to kind of train that, because there's going to be situations where either way, it's a bad situation. Because somebody else made a bad decision, forcing you to make a bad decision. So that's the one thing that I think the naysayers say, well, it's just going to run people over. Well, if a human is driving, they put in the same situation, they have to make a decision too.
Exactly.
And I'd hope they would.
Do I run over the baby carriage, or do I run over the two dudes smoking cigarettes?
I hope they fix the two dudes, because I don't smoke, so that'd be fine for me if they do that. You know, when you invest in stuff like this, like, we can picture, because we're in the market and we think ahead. We're probably amateur futurists trying to see what's going on.
100%. Yep.
But most investors and most humans can't do that. And I always love the story about the prefrontal cortex, a part of your brain here. They do a study and says, think about yourself, and it lights up and flashes. It says, think about somebody else. Doesn't light up at all. Then it says, think about yourself 5 years in the future. It doesn't light up.
Interesting.
We can't picture ourselves in the future, so it's an unknown. And when we have unknowns, what is typically associated with that? Negativity. So we tell people out there watching, they're probably saying, you guys are crazy. We'll never have AVs. I'll never get in one. Well, I gotta tell you, if you're in your 40s or 50s or even 60s and you live another 20 years, you're going to get in one. You're going to. You're not going to have a choice, because that's going to be the future.
You almost being in Phoenix. I was in Phoenix for spring break, and there's Waymos everywhere.
And I got in it. And then I just did it because I just wanted to try it out.
Okay.
And it was fine. I wasn't overwhelmed with it. I wasn't like, but yeah, I got in and it took me where I wanted to go. I got out and it was fine. But I didn't feel like it was groundbreaking technology. It was weird. I wasn't there yet. But it was a nice Jaguar SUV. It was beautiful. And I just think...
But then, I always think of, like, and this goes back to being a technology guy, but, like, listen, I loved my Motorola Razr. Oh, it was so awesome when you had that little flip phone, man. Best part about Razr was, like, when you were mad at somebody, man, slam that thing shut. But like, you compare that to an iPhone today, and a lot of people probably didn't have a Razr because they're like, why would I want a phone in my pocket? And now we all get anxiety if you can't find your phone. So
it really is true. And I think, the AVs, the autonomous vehicles, self-driving cars, that's a huge opportunity. It's a multi-trillion opportunity. But the bigger opportunity is the robotaxis. I think that's the bigger opportunity. And, ARK Investment, they come every year with their big ideas. And the one for 2024, they said the robo-taxi market will generate $28 trillion in enterprise value next 5 to 10 years. But again, you have to think out 10 years, and you think to yourself, who cares about 10 years? But you have to invest now. This is when you make your money. Once it's on the cover of the magazines and the weekly periodicals, and it says, okay, everybody's getting robotaxis, you've missed all the money being made.
And the real money. Like listen, you might make some, but if you keep wondering why I don't make, like, real money, it's because, well, you waited 5 years.
And it's tough being early because, again, going back to human psychology, we're sheep. We would much rather go over there than be the wolf. Like, I was equated back to, when I was younger, you're out hunting for girls, going to the bar. You always went to the bar where everybody's waiting in line. You didn't go to the bar across the street because you thought it was terrible because nobody's there, even though it could probably be the best opportunity to meet people because it's not 1,000 people. But we feel more comfortable being in a group. And I think we have to break that mental view to be successful long-term investors. It's just tough not to do that, though. So let's talk about some investment opportunities. Obviously, the first company that comes to mind is Tesla. August 8th, they have their announcement on robotaxis. I think it's going to be a good announcement, but if you take a look at the options activity, they're pricing in a huge move one direction or the other. Obviously, they're kind of priced right around that time frame. So Elon, you never know with him.
Right.
He's talked about robotaxis in the past for years, saying they're going to come, they have it. I think this time it feels more real to me, but maybe I'm
yeah, I mean, I follow a lot of guys, again, that are using FSD and everything, and they're just like, the last few versions have just been ridiculous, just like zero interruptions in LA traffic and stuff. So I think, as much as Elon was saying years ago, I think it's there now. Yeah,
I do too. And, then it comes down to government involvement, right? Are these states going to give it the approval to do it? What do they have? 3 million miles or 30 million miles of that miles already captured through the cameras. So like they have so many miles, Google's Waymo that I took, they have millions of miles as well. So I think it just comes down to a matter of they're going to do it soon. And then from there, the question though, Tim, is when does the mass adoption begin?
There you go.
Right.
Yep.
So they can say tomorrow, we're rolling it out in the 50 major cities in the United States, but it doesn't mean it's going to work. When is a mass adoption taken? And I don't know, like you come from a rural area. Do you think, I'm not saying your area in particular, but at what point do you think people will open their mind to this and it becomes a true way to get around?
I think again, speaking from like my area, like you'll have to take one. Like, I think that's like anyone, like it's funny because again, like people that will like bash Teslas, and then they ride one or they rent one or they get in an Uber and they're like, what was I talking about?
Yeah.
Like I was back to that, like, fear or whatever. And I think like the first, now, and again, this is why it'll take a while in my idea, but like the first time you fly to Miami and this thing just magically shows up, takes you where you want, does everything exactly how you want it to do. And you're like, oh, I can subscribe to that for a couple $100 a month and not have auto insurance and not have fuel and not have repairs and not have all of this. And that's going to take time. It's now, again, I think in your bigger areas, big cities, because then you'll see them every year. But like listen, around me, this is funny. I live on this cute little resort town and stuff. And like there was a Cybertruck and like the Facebook page for the community like holy crap, there's a Cybertruck. So it's going to take a while where I am, but I think like,
well, how long did it take for Uber to kind of kick in there? Because it probably took.
There's no Ubers because the population's so sparse. Yeah. Like you can't get an Uber where I am. Wow. That's how small of a community it is. Yeah. So
and again, like that's a lot of part of the United States. There are places like that are remote that this may not be there initially,
right?
But same thing with high-speed internet. I mean, there's still certain rural areas in the United States that can't get high-speed internet.
Remember that was my niche, like my business. What we did was, and this is obviously the 90s, but like we built our business specifically on looking for areas with no high-speed internet. Like we didn't want to go up against AT&T. We didn't want to go up against Tesla, okay? Like we didn't want to go against Verizon. And that business I sold out a decade ago, but my partner's still doing well because he basically has identified all these areas that don't have the quality of service.
Yes. So it will take time, but I think Tesla will be the first to really make successful robotaxis, in my opinion.
Protect Elon at all costs.
Please.
I hope like every Navy SEAL out there, please apply to Elon's security team.
I like that. He'll be here until he goes back to Mars.
There you go. Yeah.
Goes back to Mars. You look overseas too. Like I know a lot of people, let's say, in this industry for years, they hate when I talk about China. They have this negativity. However, if you go,
at the end of the day, remember we're approaching this from a trading perspective. Like listen, if I can identify a low price autonomous vehicle stock that triples, like listen, it's not like I'm working at the company or holding it for decades. Like I'm just looking at these as trades. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, we have to cut some of that, take our political views out of investing, or you're gonna end up hurting yourself.
Exactly.
So last year, 37% of all EV sales were either Tesla or BYD. Yep, it's the big Chinese company, and the next closest was Volkswagen around 4%. So they dominate the industry. And BYD became famous with Warren Buffett buying it maybe 8-10 years ago. He bought it a while ago.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, he bought it a long time ago. I think they sold a lot of position, but he invested in, I think it was the first Chinese company that he bought significantly.
Okay.
Berkshire Hathaway. But he did very well on BYD. And BYD is also one of the leaders in battery technology, which obviously we need better and better battery technology allows these AVs to go further on their own. So I think for this type of investment, I look at a basket approach. I wouldn't buy just Tesla, let's say. I would get, maybe some Tesla savings, some BYD, and a few other things we'll talk about here in a second, but other sub areas in this, because there will be so many winners when you have a multi-trillion-dollar uprising, right? It's eruption. It can't just be one company.
From all the way down to, again, charging stations.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like there's so many daughter industries. Yeah.
And Tesla, people love the dog Tesla. We've talked about this a lot. Last year, 63% of all fast charging in U.S. was Tesla owned. So not only do they dominate the market,
I would push back on that. Considering the fact that the Biden administration spent $7.5 billion to build 7 charging stations, I feel like they're a little more efficient than Elon.
Yeah, that's a tough call.
I mean, they built 7 of them.
7, yeah, 7
at $1 billion a piece.
I saw Pete Buttigieg, as we have a train going by right now. I mean, I used to think train every day.
Hopefully Pete Buttigieg's taking that out of town.
Yeah, exactly. They asked him about that in the news like maybe a week or two ago, and she asked him about the 7, and he gave some, response that didn't answer it. And the woman, the host again, what about the 7, right? He goes, well, we still plan to have 500,000. She's like, but we've got 7. Like, at this pace, it's going to be thousands of years till we get there. And it just, with his big smile, he couldn't answer it. And that, again, let kind of the markets do it. And let Elon do it. I mean, that's,
or somebody better. Like obviously, I mean, I'm sure you guys know we're both free market guys. Like, listen, if Joe Schmo is better than Elon, then let Joe. Hell yeah. The government's never going to do it any better.
Exactly. Yes, because if somebody makes a better AV charging station, and it's not Elon, I'm 100% backing them. I just think Elon's so far ahead of everybody else right now when it comes to, we saw what he did in space, the reusable rockets. I mean, the guy's ingenious. But if you're looking at outside of Tesla for charging, ChargePoint, which came public in a SPAC a while ago, so it's had that kind of post-SPAC kind of rush, right? Yeah, CHPT is a symbol, but they are still a major player in fast charging in the United States, and I think that company will continue to grow. I don't know, a little aggressive for me to buy maybe here, but you may want to just sprinkle that in, look at those type of. I also think, we talked about Uber a second ago. I think Uber and Lyft could be winners here as well, because they already have that database and the software built for Robotaxis.
Well, yeah, I mean, you think it's just a natural extension, because it's like, okay, you've already got the app, everybody's got the app, and we just plug in AVs instead of drivers. Yeah, it just seems a natural extension.
It does.
And like, to me, that would be, like kind of what I said earlier about like getting people exposed to it. Like, to me, that's the thing that will really help it go mainstream, is when I do go to the city, now all of a sudden it's an AV, and I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
Yep.
So I think same with Uber. I mean, I remember, 10 or 12 years ago, like, I traveled back then, and the whole taxi thing and all that. And then you're just like, I can just like, and it tells me when he's going to be here, and all. I'm like, this.
Your cost flat out.
Yeah,
exactly where cost is, and you're not worried about it. I remember, I think it was Lyft, maybe 4 years ago at CES in Vegas in January. They had an autonomous vehicle, and on Lyft, and it gave you a choice. You want to have an autonomous vehicle, and it came and picked. It was just in a small area in Vegas, but they were doing it at the time. It was a company called Aptiv, which is still publicly traded, and probably the best pure play auto parts maker for EV AVs. Symbols APTV. I like the company. It's been struggling only because the takeoff of this has taken long, right?
Sure.
It's one of those companies that 5 years ago ran up on the news, and then it's like, well, and you see that a lot of times with new mega trends where the initial, right, and boom, and then it comes down.
Well, because that's where all the speculators pile in, and then reality kind of sets in a little bit, and then they all kind of grind sideways,
And it also, in the beginning, when you're looking at a new mega trend, you're like, this is going to happen so fast and bigger than now.
Yeah.
So it has this run up, and then, like you said, speculators get out there, and it's like, wait, this is still going to happen. It's going to take longer. So then they're like, we don't need to get in right now. But eventually, you see that with any major mega trend, kind of this big run up, come down, and really this come down spot right now is probably the best time to buy, but with a real move higher. So that's a company to keep an eye on. And then, of course, there's the picks and shovels, Tim. I mean, just think about all the chips and all the sensors and all the cameras that go into this.
All the wire. We talked about that on the previous episode.
Yeah.
You look at break apart an EV or an AV or a charging station, there's a lot of wire in there.
Yeah. Copper, right?
Yep.
Like copper. Like the amount of copper is being used. On Semi, which is symbol OA, and that's a great company. It's really auto-focused. A company I've been following for a while. ST Microelectronics, which is STM, another one that's in there. NXP, if you follow NXP Semiconductors, NXPI. those are probably the closest you can get to a pure play if you're looking for semis for the future of autos, really, and transportation. So those are a couple. And again, we talked about copper last time. Copper's been on a fire. And again, everything we're talking about here requires more copper. So there's a lot of great opportunities there too. And of course, there's ETFs out there that attack this, but I'm anti-ETF.
Yeah.
Just because you're going to end up getting GM, Ford, all those companies in there, right?
That's why I'm not like many of you know, like during the webinars and stuff, like I always kind of steer people away from the ETFs because it's like, again, yeah, you get listen, I grew up in Michigan, but I call them government motors. Like I don't want them in my ETF. Yeah. So
I think what you do is, if we're telling people, hey, listen, here's a couple, you have some automakers, you have some electric charging makers, you got some maybe Uber or Lyft, maybe put a couple picks and shovels in there. It costs $0 to trade these days.
That's it.
Build your own ETF.
Yeah.
Because when you buy an ETF of the, let's say 35 stocks in there, 20 of them I don't want to own. So why am I buying them? Buy the 15. If you're going to put 15,000 and put 1,000 each.
Yep.
Rebalance every 6 months. Print your own damn one. Like, it's not hard to do. A little extra work,
but again, you don't end up with all this other trash that they throw in.
Exactly. So, I think we can leave it there, but I really think this is a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity that starts with autonomous vehicles and ends with robotaxis. I think that's the progression we'll see over the next 10 years. And hopefully we're still doing this in 10 years. And I guarantee you if we are, I will probably be, if I'm living in the United States, and we'll have in Nicaragua. But if I'm in the United States, we will be traveling around in AVs.
So that being said, everyone, thank you again. And, listen, especially if you're on YouTube, drop us a comment. Like my question would be do you think it's coming? Are you fighting the AVs or do you think it's inevitable, kind of like what Matt and I do? So give us those comments, share with your friends, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Steady Trade Podcast.